Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we are back working on the 2005 Ford Sport Trac. Today we're doing full brake job, front and rear, pads and rotors. So when we get situated, sit back, enjoy the ride. Okay, so because unfortunately for the time being I do most of my work in the dirt, I got this floor jack, and I purchased a it has a skid pan on it. So let me show you that. So it has this nice skid pan right here, so it allows it to slide easier on the dirt, but don't go onto any pavement because then it becomes a bear and it bites really well. So let's get this going. We'll do a floor jack cam. And even with that, it's still difficult at times to go on the dirt, but it definitely slides much easier than it would if it was wheels. Okay, so now that we've got it started, let's we need to get the hubcap loose and break the lug nuts loose. We will be doing all four wheels. So on the hubcap, there's a little slot right here to get a pry bar in. And this one may not be quite long enough. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Just kind of work it off. And exposes the lug nuts. Now, let me get the socket and get this situated. All right. So I believe this is a 19 millimeter. It is. And it is. All right. I'll see first if this will come off with the impact. Yep. All right. Let's go back to jacking up the car. So another nice thing about this skid on dirt is it gives nice even pressure on the dirt to keep things from sinking in as you're jacking them up. Look get this jacked up and get a jack stand underneath it. We'll just lower it down just a touch, and we'll use both the jack stand and the jack for support. Slide the tire off. Pick off all our lug nuts, throw them in the hubcap. Get those off to the side. All right. So, this brake here doesn't look overly horrible. They are squeaking and making noise, so we will replace them. Let's see here. So that feels like it's a 14 millimeter, and that is does not want to come off easily. So it does not want to come off easily, so we'll go at it a different way. Okay, there's one. Move the brake line out of the way. There's two. All right, the slides are broken loose. I'll pull those out. Set them off to the side and pop the caliper off. Take that up, put it out of the way so you don't put a lot of tension on the brake hose. You can sit down here on the A-frame. Alright, the top slide moves pretty freely, the bottom slide's a little stiff, so we'll take care of that when we put it back together. And now we need to take the bracket off, and that is, looks like it's a 17? Nope. $15. Okay, so we have one bolt is deep inside here, and the other one is pretty accessible, so should be interesting. But all right. Try not to get in your way. Oh, it's on there good. Put a breaker bar on this. There we go. A little more leverage. There's that one loose. And now we gotta get in here to that. Should be exciting. And wasn't too bad. Not with the breaker bar anyway. Alright. We'll get those out. here, we'll just take a look at the rest of the components, see if we see anything horribly leaking. Do know that it has a transmission cooler leak that also needs to be taken care of. But while I'm in here, I will continue to be watchful and mindful of other potential leaks. Let's try and get this out of the way again. Set that up here for now so that we can get to this bolt better to back it out. And there we go, the bracket is free. So the pads themselves, they do have some life left on them, but they're about halfway through their life. But we'll get them replaced because the other side definitely needs to get replaced, so we'll replace them in pairs. Okay. We'll put the brake caliper. Alright, so we'll put the brake caliper back over here. Over here, we'll just spin the front wheel, listen for any bearing noise. We'll give it a shake and a wiggle to see if there's any excessive play. That all seems good. So the upper joint looks good. There's no leaks. There's no cracks in that boot. The bottom one as well looked good. Come over here. The sway bar link looks good. The boot, at least the outer boot, I haven't looked at the inner boot on the rack, looks okay. And so we will move forward. So with this vehicle, in order to take the front caliper off, we actually need to take off the bearings. We need to take it off. So while we have it off, we will. So while we take it off, I'll just check the bearings and repack the ones that I have to deal with. So the next step is to take off the dust cap, and so I'll get that off. They do make a tool that clamps on and makes it easier. Unfortunately, I don't have that, so back to the trusty pry bar. Screwdriver, by other terms. So let me set you down and I'll get that off. So just it does have a little lip on it. Just kind of work it around, get underneath it, twist it out. Until it gets to a point where it'll come out. So there's the inside of the dust cap. Pretty clean in there. So here's your hub assembly. You have cotter pin on here, and then you have a locking washer on here. Some vehicles you may have a castle nut, so it has the locking portion and the nut built into one. This one here has the nut and then has the you slide a locking nut over the top of it. So I need to get the cotter pin out. possibly you want to try and bend it back straight. Sometimes they're old and corroded and there's not much you can do with them. Cotter pin slides out. Set that aside. Generally best not to reuse them, but if you don't have one and it comes out in one piece, then you can. This is that castle washer, basically. So it sits on the nut in these points, and then you slide the cotter pin through between one of the sets of ears, and then there's a hole in the spindle that the cotter pin goes through, and it holds it all together. Now this nut here is not on very tight, and that's by design. You don't want to torque it down, otherwise it'll make it so tight that your front wheel won't move. So there's specs for putting them on. You have to seat them and then back it off. So you tighten it down tight and then you back it off so that things will move. All right. And so we have the washer that goes on and holds your outer wheel bearing on. So this is what a wheel bearing looks like. It has a whole bunch of needle bearings in it. They're called needle bearings because they're cylinders versus a ball bearing would be a round ball. So that seems to be running smoothly. You look at it, you look at all the needles, see if there's any wear, excessive, anything that looks out of the ordinary, burnt or flat, or so you just look at it all over. It seems to be in good shape, and we pull off the brake rotor. Okay, so we're back. So I forgot on the Fords, the front wheels, they have the bearings as part of the front rotors. So made a run to the parts store because I forgot to get the dust seal, and while I was there I decided with all the work that's going into it, might as well just replace the bearings, even though the bearings aren't bad. So I'll show you how to repack bearings, and let me show you what the front rotor looks like compared to the back rotor. So with the front rotor in the package, in a lovely package. So this little inner part here is a race for the wheel bearing. So there is an inner bearing and an outer bearing. Usually when you buy the bearings, they come as a set. So here is the outer bearing. So this part here is called the race, but this is already pre-installed, so you don't need to install that in there. And then you pack this with grease. That goes in and it rides inside, and the axle spindle comes through there, and then put it in on the back side of the rotor. There's another race in here, and then you have the inner bearing. Again, it comes with a race that you don't need because that's already pre-installed. You grease this up, that goes in there. And what I had needed I had to go to the parts store for and decided just to get bearings is once you have that in and packed, then you put this dust seal in, and that helps hold the grease in and the dirt and grime and water out of your bearings to keep them greased and from wearing prematurely. This little ring here is the tone ring for your ABS, so that tells the car how fast the wheel is spinning, and the computer registers that and it compares it to how fast all the other wheels are spinning, and that's what helps control your ABS. Okay, so like I said, this is what on a rear-wheel drive vehicle, at least on the Fords, the front rotor looks like. It has the wheel bearings built into it, as opposed to this is what the rear brake rotor looks like on the vehicle. So on this, it just slides over your wheel studs, and then your brakes will pinch on that, and then on the rear wheels, it actually has a deep well here. So on older vehicles before disc brakes, they had drum brakes. So this is a drum, but it's only used for the emergency brake. You know, your stopping power is with disc brakes out here on the outer portion of the rotor, and then the rears do have a drum built in for the emergency brake. And when I do the rear wheels, I'll show you that. But most front wheel and all-wheel drive vehicles, all they have is this type of rotor without the wheel bearings in it. So I wasn't thinking when I bought the parts that this was a rear-wheel drive vehicle, so I had to run back to the parts store and get all the parts I needed. Since I did buy new wheel bearings, I'll just get it all set up back here and then spring it up as an assembly up to the front axle and install it, versus trying to do it all on the ground. This will be a little bit cleaner sitting here on the tailgate. So I'll show you how all that goes. So get some brake clean. What we'll do is I will clean all the grease off of the rotor. It's sent with a little bit of grease coating to help prevent it from rusting while in transit. And if you don't get that off, there is a very high possibility that your brake pads will be clogged with it and they won't function properly. So I'll clean both front and back, and then I'll do that first before I put the brand new greased bearings in, and that way I don't get brake clean washing out the grease that I just put in to the bearings. So I'll just spray those down. Alright, and then before I go and do the final assembly with the brakes. I will hit them one more time just to make sure, you know, I didn't get any grease from the bearings on the rotor. So when packing bearings, it is a lovely messy job. So I will be wearing gloves for doing the wheel bearings, for packing them. So again, this is a wheel bearing. It is a needle bearing, so you can see all the little bearings, and if I set it up this way, let me get you out of the shadows. You can see all the bearings in there. And so that area that's in there needs to be packed with grease to allow the bearings to run smoothly and to survive longer. So the way you pack a bearing is you take a whole bunch of grease. Like I said, it's a messy job. I'm wearing gloves. And then you take your bearing and you push it down into the grease. And you want to continue to push it down. And force grease into the bearings until you get one section filled, and then the rest of it goes faster. But so starting out, if you do it carefully, it helps to know that you're fully packed versus just slathering grease on the whole thing and then you think it's done. You keep forcing the grease up through the gap until it comes out up here. So, you know, if you just took and went, and now you wouldn't know if there was grease coming out or not. So you start, you know, if you just took and put grease there, you wouldn't know. So you need to do it from one side, and you just force grease up until you see it coming up the other side of the bearings, and then you know that the bearing has been fully packed. And then, like I said, the first section's the hardest because there's no grease at all, and then as you work your way around, it goes a little quicker because now you're not filling up an entirely blank, empty spot. You know, because the grease will migrate out as you pack it from the original spot that you started. But you just keep going, forcing the grease up until it comes out all the way around. So I'll let you just watch in super motion until I'm done. Okay, so that is the inner wheel bearing done. We'll just set it aside. Do the outer bearing, same thing, smaller bearing. And rinse and repeat. the outer done. So I'm going to do the other side, since I'm already making a mess, and I'll be back when I'm done. Ronnie, can you turn the camera off?
Do I just press this?
Just press and hold that. Alright, now that those are done, I got the one set there, one set there. I have them sitting in the races just to help keep them clean. I already started throwing a little bit of grease in there, you can see. So you want to grease the inside of the rotor where the hub goes through, and then you seat the inner bearing, and then you put the dust cap on it. So let me get that going. There is the inner bearing. Alright, so now this seal goes on. And what that does is help keep road grime and everything else from getting on the, like I said, washing out all the grease. So get it started, and then you take a wooden block or a mallet and tap that on. So I'll get that done. All right, so I'll just take a piece of cardboard here, just to help keep the dirt out. And there we go. So that's been put in and seated. So that's the back side of the rotor done. And you can see I got some grease on it, so I'll have to clean that off before I put the pads on and final assembly. And now we can take the rotor up to the front along with the outer bearing, and we can get that situated on the spindle. Ouch. Okay, so we'll check where the bearing runs, and that's clean and smooth. There's no pitting or anything like that in it. So I'll take the rotor and slide it up onto the spindle, making sure the outer bearing doesn't fall out into the dirt, because unfortunately, like I said, I'm working in the dirt, at least until my house gets built. And then for the first time in my life, I'll have a garage, which will be amazing. All right, then we take our nut, which, if you remember, was extremely loose, but that's by design. All right, so this needs to push up onto the spindle a little bit more. So that dust seal has pushed up onto the hub on its surface. So now that's exposed some threads here on the spindle, and we tighten the nut down. Yep, actually getting ahead of ourselves. Take our washer, and then we take our nut, Alright, so you want to tighten that and be turning the rotor. Tighten that down until it gets tight. And you can't move it, or not very well anyway. And then you know that your bearings are seated. All right, so that is totally tight. It is very difficult to move. And you want to back it off. Until it turns freely. Then you clean all the dirt out of your castle nut, because it's fallen into the dirt in the driveway. So we clean all the dirt off, old grease. And then that goes on, and it just sits on the nut. Okay, so then you take your new cotter pin. Said if you're in a real pinch, you can try and reuse them. It's always advisable to try and get new ones. So just get your cotter pin down all the way. And bend it up and around so it can't come out. And that is that done. So now we'll hit the rotor again with some brake clean, get the grease off that may have gotten on there from putting this on, and then we'll get to putting the brake caliper and the brake pads on. Alright, so I'll be right back. As a tribute to Eric O at South Main Garage, alright, so here we have our slide again. Just need to knock out the old pads No sense being gentle with them because they're being replaced. Take off the guides. This is not in too bad a shape, so I'm just gonna throw some grease on that, and we will throw the new pad on here. These are the rear brakes, hon.
Oh, they are. On this bit, it said semi-met, so I thought that meant semi-metal or whatever. So
Either that or they sold me 2 rears.
So I got confused. And like, they didn't say they're on it, like, even like little indicators. They were, you know.
Okay.
Are they 2 rears?
Nope.
Okay. Whew.
Okay, so go through and just double check the brake pads, make sure they're the same size. See if either side has a squeaker on it. I do not see one. And the old pads did not have a squeaker either, and you can see right here this pad was separating from its backing, so even though it did have some life on it, it did need to be replaced. We'll just look at all the pads, make sure, see if there's an inside and an outside, just to confirm. They are all the same part number. Alright, so it doesn't matter on this particular vehicle for inside and outside. It does come with some slide grease. And it comes with new brake hardware. And just compare the hardware, see if there's any difference in those. And looking at the brake hardware, everything is uniform, so there is no difference in them. Doesn't matter which side they go on. Oh. I can slip in there. This can slip in here. All right. And we load our brake shoes in. Which can be a bear sometimes, trying to get them to line up and to slide in. But once they slide in, it holds it there. So if remember, I was saying the slides was working kind of tough, so took it out, cleaned the old grease off of it. We will put some new grease on it. Not a tremendous amount, because then too much of a good thing is not a good thing, because then it'll bottom out in the hole with the grease and cause problems as well. So take that, slide that back into the piston and move it back and forth, twist it around, get it all situated. Make sure the boot goes back over its little housing. Go over. That one worked so much better. Clean that one off. Again, throw some lube on it. And back in the hole. Slide it in and out. Make sure the boot seats, that will keep dirt and garbage out. And then you can take and slide that back over your rotors. Okay. Now we gotta put the bolts back in. That'll hold the bracket on. So have to find where the bolt hole is. There's one started. You always want to start your bolts by hand, because you definitely don't want to strip these bolts out, cross thread them. And then this one will go in, get that started. Okay. And this one that's deep inside takes a while because you don't have a very big throw on it. At least I can't get my fingers in to tighten it down by hand very far. There we go. So there's that one. And move the brake caliper out of the way. We still need to get that piston in. So on this brake caliper, we need to get both these pistons pushed in, get it cleaned up, get some flaking rust. Not too bad. Just chip that stuff off, get it cleaned up. You can either loosen the brake bleeder, and when you push the pistons in, or you can just push the piston in and let the oil go back up into the reservoir for the brakes. I've heard pros and cons for both ways. I choose to just push them in and let the fluid go back up. You can do however you want. The easiest way I found on these double pistons is you take one of the old brake pads and you put it up against the both pistons, because you want to push them both in, and then take a clamping device and you gently squeeze that together and it will push the pistons back in. So basically, here's your piston. This is a boot that keeps the dirt out and keeps the fluid in. And so we'll get this cleaned up and get those pushed in, and then we'll put a little lube on the surfaces that the pads sit on, just to help with squeaks and whatnot, and then we'll get this thing reassembled. So hang on and I'll get that done. Alright, let's see if we can get this to push in. Alright, put a little pressure on it, slowly sliding in, tighten it up a little bit, squeeze it again, rinse and repeat. And when you're putting it back in, you want to make certain that you don't damage these boots, because any tear on the boots will ruin the caliper, and you have to replace it. Alright, so let me get these surfaces cleaned up a little bit. Like I said, it wasn't in bad shape. So, little grease on the surfaces just to help them from squeaking. Alright, again, not too much. You don't want an over buildup of stuff, and then that'll cause the brakes not to work because there'll be too much pressure from the grease that you've put in to make it work better. So, kind of a double-edged sword. It can be anyway, if you're not careful. Make sure you don't put a twist in the caliper hose, and you push your slides in. Alright, so there's that. Then we take caliper bolts and take our caliper bolts and we get them started. And the bottom slide isn't seated correctly, so let me take it. I gotta back it off a little bit. There we go. Get that started. Take our bottom bolt. That's much better. Okay, so that's all going together swimmingly. And then we take our 14mm. And we tighten that down. So whenever you're doing brakes, you always want to make sure that you pump them up before you attempt to move the vehicle, because you will not have brakes when you first start the vehicle if you don't pump them up. You've basically pushed the calipers all the way in, and there is, yes, you have the pads touching the rotors, but there's no pressure on them from the pistons, so you will have no brakes. So always remember to pump them up before you go anywhere. So you get in the vehicle, pump up the brakes until they're firm, and then start the vehicle. And it's just a good habit to get into. So we want to torque these bolts down now, all 4 of them, and then I will head to the back brakes and get that done. And then since the video is already getting long enough, I will end it there and do the other side off camera.